This is my favorite Ansel Adams photograph. Of all the sweeping vistas and majestic mountain ranges that he captured over the course of his career, this small, intimate scene speaks to me in a way that very few photographs do. I wanted to talk about this photograph because Adams was, above all, probably the most famous landscape photographer of all time. Is this photograph a landscape? To that point, what makes a landscape photograph? What makes a good landscape photograph? Landscape photography is, at its most familiar, a way to document the natural world. It gives a voice to our interactions with the planet and allows us to present a vision of those interactions as we see them. It can be huge and overwhelming or small and familiar. It can depict the last truly natural places free from human interaction, or document the urban landscapes that spring up wherever we settle. Like all forms of photography, it allows the photographer to inject his or her voice to distort the image ever so slightly through the medium. On Twitter, I recently asked the question, what does landscape photography mean to you? I received this Ansel Adams quote in response. Landscape photography is the supreme test of the photographer, and often the supreme disappointment. It's a fair assessment. I found that no other form of photography requires the time investment and patience that landscape does with so little guarantee of success. Browse Flickr or 500px and you will see a stream of immediately forgettable landscape images. Part of this is the previously mentioned time investment. No other form of photography is as beholden to light and weather. You can't use a modifier and strobes to create a sunrise. You can't coach the clouds into slowly rolling across the sky. So much of landscape photography is sitting and waiting, and a slight shift in the color of light can separate a gorgeous image from one that might otherwise be forgettable. I'll be the first to admit that my attempts at landscape photography have seen more failure than success. Part of this can be attributed to gear, timing, and circumstance, but most of it is my unwillingness or inability to wait. The difficult part of capturing the perfect image isn't being in the right spot. It's being in the right spot an hour before the sun rises or as a thunderstorm rolls in. It's planning, waiting, and hoping. Sometimes I worry that we're desensitized to photographs of natural splendor. Not only is photography more accessible than ever, but we now have tools to manufacture beautiful images from base components. Things like focus stacking and exposure blending blur the line between photography and digital art. There are now pieces of software that will literally replace the skies in your images with more interesting ones. Do I find this immoral? Of course not. Distasteful? Well, yeah. I believe digital art is every bit as viable as other art forms, but I don't believe it's photography. There's a moment when an image becomes something other than a photograph. Whether or not we can pinpoint that exact moment is a separate question entirely. It's a sad truth that subtlety and nuance aren't the things that grab attention on Instagram or 500px. This fight to be noticed might be what leads to things like overdone HDR and the tendency of new photographers to crank the clarity slider all the way to the right. In a market where so many people are posting incredible landscapes, can you actually blame them? How would we react to Ansel Adams photographs today? Would we still marvel at something like the Tetons and the Snake River? It's hard not to feel like we've seen everything and that all the natural places have disappeared. People have been everywhere and photographed every single mountain. So with all this being said, it's worth pointing out that photographers are still out there creating brilliant and original landscapes. The burden falls on us to find them and support them. I assume that if you're watching this video, you're familiar with artists whose work you respect and enjoy, so do this. Buy a print. Hang it on your wall. Tell people about it. There will always be quality out there to be found, so let's make it worth their time. And this brings me back to that first photo of the aspens. It's not reliant on the grandeur of scenery, but rather on the soft and subtle light falling on trees. It's small and simple and totally beautiful. In some ways, it's as much a portrait as it is a landscape. There's no way Photoshop sliders could make this photograph any better. Nothing exposure stacking could do to improve it. This is the ultimate hope of the landscape photographer. that every once in a while, all that sitting and waiting translates into something transcendent. As always, guys, thank you for watching. What's going on, guys? Thank you for bearing with me while I was kind of figuring some stuff out and deciding how to move forward with the channel. A lot more videos like this. We're going to be focusing on the narrative videos. So if this is something you like and you have suggestions on stuff you'd like to see me tackle, feel free to address those in the comment section. So if you're new to the channel, of course, hit that like button, subscribe, hit the little bell to see when I'm doing stuff. Check out my social media links down below. If you really like the content, if you're interested in seeing more content like this, please consider supporting me on my Patreon. If everyone who watched my videos gave me like $1 a month, I would be able to do this as a job, and you would for sure get a video every week, if not more. So consider it. I would really appreciate it. In the meantime, guys, I'll see you in about a week. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.